Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zoom O'Clock with your host, Tessy Antony-de Nassau. After a short baby break, Theodore will be 8 weeks this week. I am resuming my amazing podcast with the most inspirational podcast guests. Today, I start my podcast with a dear friend, Peter Augustine, whom I have met at an Angel Club investment conference in Kitzbühel only a few weeks ago, and he has inspired me so much, and there's so much I have to learn from him. So be ready for all of the questions I have for him. Peter, he started off as an electrician when going off to working for Saturn behind the counter, and then launching quite a few businesses, very successful businesses that we are going to get in, from internet up to investment for infrastructures and Web3. What is Web3? We will get into all of that. Dear Peter, welcome on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to have you. Thank you for your time, because I know you are extremely busy. So I think our guests will learn a lot from you today, as much as I already have learned from you. So let's get started with the first question. How was that step from working behind the counter at Saturn to having a company of 300 people working for you? How was that for you?
Well, basically the step took 10 years because we started out the company as two founders. So after I quit my job at Saturn, we founded internet service provider in Austria. The name was iNode, and we were two founders, and we built the company from scratch, from zero off. Yeah. So we've been really young. We've been, I guess, something 19, 20 years old, and we did the first years. I think the first 2 years just the two of us, and 2 years after founding the company, we got our first employee. And it took another year for the second employee, and then things started to roll. Yeah? I guess 5 years after founding, we had somewhere 50 employees, and 10 years after founding, we sold the company, and then it was 300.
Wow, that's impressive. As far as of my research, I could see that you had a revenue of around 50 million a year with that company, which is impressive at such a young age, really inspirational. So tell me, how was the feeling for you to bring the internet to Austria?
Well, actually, the internet has been to Austria, and we have not been the only one who did it, but I guess we've been the only one who did it to the very end, where it made economical sense. So when we started out, I guess there might have been 30 others in Vienna who did the same like we did. And over the years, the market became more consolidated. But we even when we got offers to exit the company, we declined them because we thought there is more to come. We had a vision, yeah. We had a vision where to go, and we executed the vision till the very end.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, patience is a virtue, and it definitely works for some of us to be a bit more patient when it comes to exiting. So when thinking about the internet, obviously it revolutionized everything. What fascinated you with the internet at the time when you were so young? And what fascinates you today still, if on this topic?
Well, back then the fascination was because there was nothing comparable which connects the world on an even layer. There was nothing. You could do phone calls and send faxes around the world. That's all you could do. Maybe Telegram or something like that. Really on paper, not the app. and that's it. Yeah? So it was clear to me this thing has to come. Well, everybody back then who did some data transfer over computers had phone bills huge as hell. Yeah. So back then we had shillings in Austria, and my phone bill was every month several thousand shillings. Oh, wow. So the internet was the thing who solved this. Yeah. and to me it was clear this is gonna happen. Yeah, it was I had no doubt that it's not gonna happen. Yeah. The thing which of course surprised me is that there are so many obstacles to overcome to get it out of the door. Yeah? So you had to fight with Telekom Austria back then for the lines and everything, but basically that was our job. But I had never doubted that it wouldn't, the internet wouldn't be rolled out on a big scale.
Wow, fascinating. So from the internet, let's go to a really relevant topic now. We see it in Spiegel, we see it in The Economist, we see it in all kinds of major credible publications now. Everyone is talking about crypto, the regulation of crypto, and all of these other different currencies now, and banks. In Luxembourg, big topic as well. So where do you see Bitcoin and Co. in the next 5 years?
Well, actually, I'm not the big Bitcoin specialist, neither I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. Yeah, basically, I think Bitcoin is a good replacement for physical gold. It's like the digital version of gold, so it has benefits like every digital assets over a physical asset. Like you don't have to mess around with it, where to have it, where to store it, where to secure it. Yeah. So Bitcoin is an alternative to gold. Personally, I don't see much of much else to do with Bitcoin. So I'm rather the guy who cares for all the other crypto projects, not so much for Bitcoin.
Tell me about the others. Which ones is your favorite, or which one have you been starting to work with, and why?
Well, the others I tend to call it Web3 because it's not a single one. Yeah? It's the whole thing. Yeah. Web3 is also based on crypto, just like Bitcoin is. I would say it's the next level because Bitcoin is 10 years old. So it's time to get into the next stage, yeah, and that's exactly where we are right now. Web3 is the first time ever that you can have ownership over digital assets in the internet. Until now, you have your owner. You don't have ownership. If you have some nice JPEG, yeah, you can send it around. Everybody can look at it, but you don't own it. Yeah. So that's the NFT craze that's going on right now. You can own this JPEG. Yeah, it's yours. Yeah? You can show it off like a picture on a wall, but it's yours. You can sell it. You can own it. You can hide it. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, and that's Web3. Yeah, and that's the next big thing for the next 10 years, I think.
So with Web3, you have a company within that space. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, actually, it's not a company, it's a fund. It's an investment fund which will invest in these future Web3 projects.
Is it already public? Can you tell us the name?
No, it's not public yet. It's in the registration process right now, and I will let you know when things are through.
Perfect. We will then do another podcast because it's such a fascinating topic. Certainly here in Switzerland, I have a girlfriend of mine, Ayla, who is very, very engaged in that. I will make sure I introduce you with her to her. And she created that group where she's trying to educate all of us on Web3. For me, it's super new. And even before our podcast today, I said to Frank, please, can you explain to me what that is? Because for me, it's very new, Web3. I know about Bitcoin and all of these other things because we also have some investments in there. But about Web3, it's, as you say, it's the next step. And I just need to get my head around it. And so, yeah, keep me posted. So next question. I have written them in German, so I will translate them as we go. So today you are a startup investor and a successful entrepreneur. What do you think of the young generation of entrepreneurs when you compare it to when you were young?
Well, the huge difference is they have really lots of capital if they go for it. That was definitely not the case back then. Back then you had to bootstrap. or you had rich parents, which funded you. But basically, you had to bootstrap and you had to get cash flow quickly. You had not that much time. You didn't have 2 years runway building a product. Yeah? You had to get into cash flow soon, otherwise you run dry. So that's the big difference back then. And on the other hand, I think competition heated a lot up because everything is global today. That wasn't back then the case. Yeah? When you started a business in Austria, you could run it in Austria. Today, when you start a business in Austria, your competition is global. So this thing is like Go Student made it the right way. The only way you can be successful today is if your total addressable market is worldwide, you have to address the worldwide global market. You can't say, I do this only in Austria. You probably fail.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, as well within that space, before I was always employed by companies, and now being an entrepreneur myself, and having discussions with my husband, who is more than a decade older than me, it's always funny because he always says, no, you're not a real entrepreneur yet. And I said, what do you mean? I have my companies and I have all of these different things as well. And so there's a certain difference between his generation and my generation when it comes to entrepreneurship and how we define that. So it's always a very fun and insightful discussion when we get there. So yeah, thank you for your answer on that one. So where do you see the biggest chances, opportunities today, and the biggest risks for entrepreneurs?
Biggest chances. Well, it's the same as the last question. The biggest chances your total addressable market is probably the whole world. You can do it from everywhere, but you have to address the whole world. Yeah? On the other hand, the biggest risk are just the same. Yeah? If you don't do it, you're running into problems. You stay a small company. You might be too small to survive. Yeah? You run into scalability problems. So you better run a business which doesn't require to scale, yeah? or you just don't do it. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the core question is always, does my business scale and does it have to scale? Yeah? Because if your business does not have to scale, you can do it on a regional level, you can do it on a local level, that's totally okay. Yeah? But if your business scale, you can expect there is some 3 other guys all around the world doing just the same like you, and the one who scales it globally will win the race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really, as you say, nowadays the opportunity really to make it global has increased so much. Also, I think because of the COVID pandemic, everything has become online, so we were forced to become a little bit outward thinking, and certainly the internet and how we use it now to connect to one another through Zoom and all of these other means has definitely helped new startups to scale it faster than they would have. Yeah, decades.
Absolutely. There have been massive funding rounds even in Austria, which were unthinkable before 2020. Wouldn't have happened.
Give me an example.
That's because like Bitpanda.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know them?
Yes, I do.
Go
we
Student.
Invested in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Go Student is another example. They were basically a very small founder team. The company I think they started the company in 2016, and as far as I heard from other sources, they were basically broke because it just didn't work. Yeah? And then in 2020, suddenly everybody understood why homeschooling is a thing. and within weeks or within months, yeah, they did really huge funding rounds which were unthinkable before 2020.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, no, talking about homeschooling, I hear you. You have children yourself. Oh, I have such a respect for teachers now. It was really hard a year to teach 3 teenagers here at home. It was interesting. So yes, companies like that definitely have my full support and investment as well. So going over then to talking about startups in itself or businesses, which ones you mentioned already, some like they impressed you with how they raised funds now during COVID. Which ones for you really are interesting to look into?
You mean really new startups or some established ones?
Can be either or both.
Well, to invest in, hard to say, because I'm really focused now on the Web3 space. So I personally think that's the place to go. Yeah? There are of course there are opportunities outside of this, but I'm so focused into Web3 that I would say just take a look into Web3 projects. These are gonna fly in the next 10 years.
Perfect. And yours, when can we expect some news from you?
Well, I think we hope to be through within the next 3 months.
Oh yeah, wow, that is before the end of the year, huh? Well, a little bit, yeah, probably beginning of new year then. That's fantastic. Okay. So which other, I have so many questions for you. I need to kind of look which ones, because we're running out of time already. That's a good one. That's always a good one that I ask quite a lot of investors that I have on my podcast. So with which company do you think the beep, I should have invested in that one when it just came up?
Well, Tesla, of course. that was a crazy situation, because I was one of the first Tesla owners in Austria, but I didn't believe in the stock because it was so overhyped and so overrated and so overvalued. Yeah? And I thought that's too expensive to invest in. Yeah? So 10 years later, on one side I was wrong, and on the other side I was right, because it's still highly overvalued. Yeah? If you compare it to other companies, on the other side I would have 10x my money. Yeah?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I didn't go for it. Yeah?
Yeah, we think the same. We have Teslas too, and my husband tells me all the time I should have invested in it. Now in the UK, right, with the gas crisis, there's definitely new conversations to be held about that, and electricity, certainly. So as we are slowly wrapping up our podcast, and I have so many more questions, so we probably need to do a second podcast also when your newest project is live. We definitely can talk about that, and I will have millions of questions about Web3 then too. But before we wrap it up, something I really like to ask my guests is, what is a book or books that you have read which really made a difference for you in your work life or in your private life, where you say, that is a book I always gift, for example, it's a book I always talk about when people ask me, or with my mentees or whatever. What is that book for you?
Well, actually, I can suggest 2 books. The first book I read back in the 90s, when the company was growing at an incredible pace, and I didn't know if that was a good idea to do it or not. The book was Hard Drive. Its name was Hard Drive, and it was mostly about Bill Gates and Microsoft. Mm-hmm. How he came out of the garage and built a $1 billion company. How this worked. They started also as 2 founders, and it was, the Microsoft story, maybe everybody knows. And it was interesting, how can this work? How can 2 guys found a company and make it a global industry out of it? Mm-hmm. And I read this book, and this book gave me the confession to do the same in Austria, because I knew it worked. If you have a vision and the market is here, you can do it. Mm-hmm. And that helped me a lot. And the second book I just read 1 year ago, 2 years ago. It's from an Austrian guy who I guess he's an entrepreneur, and he does podcasts and everything. His name is Florian Kandler. Mm-hmm. And the book is Business Angels and Business Devils, because I was interested in the venture business, how it's working, because it's fairly new to Austria. We didn't have it at that scale back then. So I thought I need to know how these things work, and it gave me a glimpse into the future, even for an Austrian ecosystem, because he explained how venture business works. So how do you have to think as a founder? How do you think as a VC? And that opened my mind a lot, I have to admit.
That's interesting. Yeah, definitely need to look into that one. That sounds interesting. I will get Florian's book. For Bill Gates, there's also there's a new documentary I just saw on Netflix, which is In the Mind of Bill Gates, it's called. And it really talks exactly about what you said in the book about how he launched the company, how he really worked, how he functions. And he talks about his experience from zero to hero, right? His ex-wife talks about it as well. And when he was a student, his relationship to his parents. So definitely for people who don't have time to read this book, the book Hard Drive, definitely check out the Netflix documentary. It's a short series of, I think, 3 segments. It's really interesting. So yeah, fascinating. Well, my dear Peter, we have run out of time already. We're looking forward to our next podcast with you in 3-4 months' time then, when we can finally disclose the name of your new venture and how people also can get involved within that space, because that would be also a question I would have asked you today. How can people get involved with what you're doing? How can people invest with what you're doing? How can people contact you? Maybe that one we can say. How can people contact you if they have further questions?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn or on Telegram.
Perfect. I will make sure I put these links below as well. And then we shall talk again in a few months' time about your newest venture. Thank you so much, Peter. And I wish you a beautiful rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.